So, good morning, everybody. So, I think that in the climate debate it's quite easy to see that something's wrong with the so-called consensus. And in fact, if we consider that this is easy, then an important question is, how can it be that so many clever people, so many honest people can be fooled by such a doubtful theory? And of course, we can just answer that they are not so clever or not so honest. But it is my opinion that most of them are clever and honest. And to understand what's going on, we can use, I think, epistemology is an important tool. That is, studying the way scientific theory rises and fall and disappear, then come back again. And I think it's important to do it with climate change, to apply epistemology. So to do it, I would like to tell you a quite incredible story and very enlightening for the debate, I think. Only a few people know that, and I insist upon the fact that it's a story perfectly authentic. So, at that end of century, several searchers observed a puzzling phenomenon. So they tried to understand what was going on. They needed careful observations, made with the most modern tools to provide strong foundation to their emerging theory. So modern tools were built, and results followed. Not only the initial observations were confirmed, but their importance were strengthened at an incredible level. Strongly supported by scientists from all parts of the world, the phenomenon and its consequences quickly seemed to be proven beyond any doubt. This was an event of major impact. Silently, a tragedy had begun. We could put the next slide, please. A tragedy had begun at a global scale, caused by a dramatic climate change. Excessive warmth was generating droughts, lack of resources, and so on, and no country on the planet would be preserved. The slow agony was probably irreversible. Among other things, the evolution of polar ice was regarded as a conclusive proof of the phenomenon, the canary in the coal mine. So, was this world condemned to extinction, despite its prodigious technology? Obviously nothing but a worldwide solidarity, together with huge efforts, were necessary to save it. But maybe it was already too late. All of this was a powerful argument to ask for a better world, free of selfishness and injustice. As scientific research went on, newspapers all around the world reported its results. In the beginning of the new century, more and more people were aware of the work of scientists in the field. Popularization books flourished in booksellers' shops. Inspired scenario writers used the new theory to imagine scary end-of-the-world stories. A new culture was rising. New questions were asked. No one could remain indifferent. Then some discordant opinions started to rise too. Since the very beginning, some searchers were already skeptical, but quickly any skepticism was regarded as a sin, since it could stop the momentum for questions which could help mankind to make significant progress in its humanity. Thus, only a few people even heard the names of such skeptical searchers. And since, as usual, the newspapers were more willing to report exciting announcements than skeptical arguments, also suggesting that the competence of those skeptics was doubtful, the consensus appeared to be real for the vast majority of the people. The consensus was strongly The consensus was strongly supported by an American man, formerly diplomat, who spent most of his life in successful conference on the issue. He became a living symbol. Several scientists were with him. One of them is still known today for its use of dendrochronology to study past temperatures of the Earth. Sorry? Already heard that before. Oh, shame on me. So I didn't want you to lose your time with things you already know, so let me go faster. Sorry for that. So, well, even if newspapers did not report it, skeptics had three major reasons to challenge the theory. First, it was a priori strange that so many and so precise results could be derived from an object so difficult to investigate. Second, complementary atmospheric analyses were impossible to reconcile with the theory. Third, several analyses that seemed initially the best support to the theory were nothing more than artifacts. As time went, more and more defaults in the theory were discovered. All its arguments, from the simplest to the most subtle, appeared for what they were in reality, empty shells. So, several years after the first announcements, the glorious story was gone. Some people never acknowledged that the skeptics were right, so the story did definitely end only 1 century after its beginning. The coup de grâce was given in July the 20th, 1976. At that date, the American spacecraft Viking 1 landed on Mars, definitely proving that no life ever arose on that planet. Sorry? All things considered, the story I'm telling you is not the one you expected, so probably I could explain it better. At the end of the 19th century, propitious astronomical configurations made especially easy the observation of Mars, allowing astronomers to make its cartography. Next slide, please. And a strange phenomenon was then reported. Several straight lines seemed to appear all over the surface of the planet. These lines were too straight to be natural. So the idea arose that these canals were an undoubtable sign of the existence of a living civilization on Mars. The amazing size of the canals was the proof that the Martian civilization was extremely advanced. In comparison, the Suez and the Panama canals, contemporary of the story of the canals of Mars, were just ridiculous. The canals of Mars were not born from the imagination of some joker. Its first observer was Giovanni Schiaparelli, a respected scientist, director of the Milano Observatory. Thus, it was not surprising that many scientists decided to take this observation in consideration. But why did the Martians build such enormous canals? The answer was given by Percival Lowell. Next slide, please. So the left guy. Percival Lowell, who resigned his position of diplomat to become an amateur astronomer. He built a top-modern observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona, to study in detail the canals of Mars. And his conclusions were dramatic. Martians have built their canals to preserve their planet from a global drought caused by a global climate change. The union of all Martian civilizations was necessary to build those canals, which allowed to transport water from the poles and irrigate the whole planet. How fantastic was this unified Martian civilization! Undoubtedly, this civilization gave us a wonderful example of solidarity. Those who have seen Al Gore's climate alarmist movie, An Inconvenient Truth, will easily recognize the very same sentimentality, the main difference between the planet supposedly victim of major climate changes. Lowell can hardly be regarded as a philanthropist with a passion for astronomy. His authoritarian behavior is well established. For example, he forced some of his employees to support his affirmation that canals were also present on the surface of Venus. One of his employees was Andrew Douglas, eventually fired because of his doubts. And as a funny fact, Douglas was also the main founder of dendrochronology, that recently gave rise to the infamous hockey stick chart, long regarded as a conclusive proof of man-made global warming on Earth. So now, let's be clear. The fact that there are no canals on Mars does not disprove the anthropogenic global warming theory. What I've made here is nothing more than an analogy. It is not intended to prove anything. Its only meaning is to stimulate thinking. Yes, scientists sometimes make mistakes. Yes, their personal beliefs can sometimes alter their views. And when science and moral are mixed up, when confusion appears between science and politics or philosophy of life, then science loses itself. At the time of the Canal of Mars, the world was full of mechanization, engineering, and modernity. That is, the idea that, as said Descartes, we would someday become masters and possessors of nature. Now we live in post-modernity. We consider that we possess the world, but that we are unworthy of our power on it. At least for a part, it is this general philosophy of life, shared by so many intellectuals, that explains why the doubtful theory of anthropogenic global warming could gain so many success. The idea that our planet is a living body, some kind of a goddess who asks for repentance and soberness, makes some climate alarmists, not all of them, of course, example of postmodern pseudoscientists. As I see it, the climate affair is the newest avatar of what I call the exponential fear. The fear that humanity... Next one, please. Let's just show my book. The fear that humanity is growing exponentially fast, in the mathematical sense of the word, and that the world is fundamentally finite, so we will soon crash into our ultimate limits. To illustrate the point, let me quote James Hansen, that you know, of course. In 2007, he wrote in a peer-reviewed article the following about melting ice. He wrote that melting ice was small until the past few years, but it has at least doubled in the past decade and is now close to 1 millimeter per year. As a quantitative example, let us say that the ice sheet contribution is 1 centimeter for the decade 2005-2015, and that it doubles each decade until the West Antarctic ice sheet is largely depleted. This time constant yields a sea level rise of the order of 5 meters this century. Okay, so with an exponential, you can do anything and forecast any catastrophic event. So, in a sense, the climate fear is the newest avatar of the irrational exponential fear. It is not the first one, and it is probably not the last. Hence, we should be concerned by the fact that sooner or later it will be replaced by another one, possibly the Anthropocene. So maybe we're able to prevent its emergence. Thank you for your attention.